Who doesn't love Pixar? They've made some of the most beautiful, emotional, and thought-provoking movies in animation history. Obviously, most of those came in the first half of their filmography, but they still have their special magic in a majority of their newer films, even if most of them aren't quite as good as the older ones. Those were my expectations for Luca. It wasn't really grabbing me like that'll be a Pixar classic, I was just expecting it to be sweet and fun. But honestly, this movie is so much more than that, at least to me. Now, no, I can't say it's as great as Toy Story 2, Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, or Ratatouille, and it's definitely not as complex as most Pixar films. However, this movie just feels important to me in a way none of the other films do, even the ones I think are way better than it. I mean, it's not a perfect movie. This guy, who I think is supposed to be the villain, wasn't really that entertaining. As much as I like the subplot with Luca's parents, maybe they had a few too many scenes. A race is not exactly the most original climax ever, even Pixar has used that before. And of course, the poopy trope. I don't think it's terrible, the conflict leading up to it is pretty understandable and emotionally interesting, but it's held down by one of the characters doing something really stupid and being really stupid, which felt weird and out of character. Thankfully, they do have another third act breakup a few minutes later, which is way better, and there are some powerful scenes afterwards which make up for the first one. This movie has its story problems, but overall, it's still a 9 out of 10 movie. What this movie gets right, it gets right. The animation is gorgeous with great character designs, the humor is pretty funny, the score is really good, and the voice acting is amazing. But what really makes this movie for me are the characters and the emotions. Its themes aren't as deep as other Pixar films, but this movie is just as powerful and magical as those. Here is the emotional brilliance of Luca. The beginning of this movie introduces us to the titular character. Luca is a sea monster who herds fish who act like sheep. He's not satisfied and feels like there's more to his life than just this. Sounds generic, but it's in how he acts that makes him his own character. He obviously wants to see the world, like I just said, but why doesn't he? He could just swim up to the surface and explore. It's easy. Well, he's never gone out and explored because everyone around him has filled him with fear and discouragement with how they all view the surface. He's never discovered because he's been convinced that that's bad and there's no reason to discover. Until he meets Alberto. He's the opposite of every character introduced in this movie so far. When we first meet him, he pushes Luca out of his comfort zone, or at least what's been told is his comfort zone. He freaks out even though nothing bad has happened. He looks around and sees the beauty of the world that he knows he's always wanted to explore but knows he never can. So he says,
"No, it's bad and I'm not supposed to be up here. Good day."
And goes back to the place he doesn't want to go to. The next day, Luca goes to the same place they were the previous day. No, not because Alberto was pushing him or even asked him to, but because of his own curiosity. We see how hesitant he is to go up to the surface, but then Alberto shows up and Luca follows after. Alberto helps him get used to the land and shows him around. This must be like the best thing ever for Luca. He's discovering new places and things like he wanted to at the beginning, but still that more frightened part of his character remains in him. A little detail I love is how Alberto says,
"See you tomorrow."
And Luca didn't even say anything about coming back. They know they both enjoy each other's company, and they're both glad that Luca got out of his comfort zone to just experience a fun day. The next day he goes back again, and he holds the ramp so Alberto can ride the Vespa they both made the previous day. Even when the Vespa breaks, instead of getting discouraged or sad, he says,
"Come on, let's build another one."
What follows is the most wholesome and charming montage in any Pixar film. It's just so much fun to see these two interact and have fun together in just the first 20 minutes. You can really tell how much their friendship grows from this first scene on the beach. The movie does such a great job of establishing these characters' goals in a believable way. By the 30-minute mark, we know Luca and Alberto want to run off and discover the world together. As generic as that seems, it makes perfect sense because we actually get to see these characters meet, help each other out, and grow a genuine bond with each other. The dialogue is also perfect. It's not trying too hard to be funny or establish things, it's just these two friends hanging out and enjoying each other. They're likable and a joy to watch. It's a very simple and charming way to get the audience to know these characters and feel for them. Honestly, if this movie had the same level of amazing writing that it had in the first act throughout the entire movie, it could have been the best Pixar movie. There are a couple of Pixar movies I can say that about. As is the rest of the movie, it's still great too. Luca's parents are aware of him going to the surface, and despite him being the only one to actually go up there and see what it's actually like, they don't approve. He runs off, and this is the perfect opportunity for Luca and Alberto to actually run off together. So they go into town so they can get a real Vespa. This is something they never would have done if it weren't for each other. We know Luca wouldn't have done it, but Alberto could have done it this entire time, and he hasn't. Just keep that in mind for later. So from here on out, the movie has a win the race plotline. The characters meet this girl and decide to race with her. They train for the race. There's that stupid villain I mentioned earlier, and you know what? I think it's great. We already had those great first 30 minutes which established these characters' goals and relationships, and while the rest of the movie isn't as great, it's still enjoyable. It's definitely a lot simpler than most Pixar films, but who cares when the characters play this well off each other and the movie's setting is so inviting. Most of this movie just takes place in this one small town, which enhances the movie's simpler story. Not to mention how I don't think the emotional moments really overcomplicate the plot. Most of them are paced very well and come at the right place in the story. Of course, we can't just have these characters train, win the race, and run off together. That movie would be sweet, but missing its emotional greatness if it did that. Yes, they could have just stopped there, a character learns something like I talked about before, but this is Pixar, and they made the story extra special, while still keeping its simplistic charm. So Alberto gets frustrated with Luca for spending more time with Julia, and thinks he's getting sidetracked. Reminder, the only reason the two of them came here is so they can get a Vespa. However, Luca starts learning more about the world and thinking maybe there's more to it than the life he dreamed of with Alberto. But keep in mind, he's still the same sea monster disguised as a human, and no matter what he does, he always will be. In the life he wanted with Alberto, the two of them will have each other and they'll explore the world together safely, but that's about it. It sounds great and wholesome considering we've seen the growing bond between these characters, but if that's all he's limiting his life to, how is it much different than where he was at the beginning of the film? It's a brilliant conflict that the movie didn't technically need, but it works so well. This is where the movie's second central theme comes into play. Acceptance. He ends up accepting people for who they are and discovering new things about yourself and who you are fit together so well here. And all around, I think it works as a great queer subtext. It makes sense why Alberto wouldn't want Luca to stay with the humans. He can't hide the fact that he's a sea monster forever, and yeah, not everybody will accept that. However, it also makes sense why Luca wants to go out and discover the world in his own way. He cares about Alberto, but he won't learn much about himself if he goes off with him. And neither will he. Then the bad poopy trope happens, which is followed by the good poopy trope, and Luca is all by himself. He knows how great it is to go out and discover things about himself, unlike at the start of the film, but it's the same fear from the start that keeps holding him down. He goes back to the island in which the last time he was there, all he wanted was to run off and see the world with Alberto. Luca finds out Alberto was all alone until he came in. In that case, Alberto getting sad he might lose Luca and being scared of them not being accepted makes even more sense. Alberto's father left him. It's pretty sad. Then, for the first time in the film, Luca tells Alberto the saying that Alberto taught him.
Silenzio Bruno. That's just a dumb voice in your head. You taught me that. And getting a Vespa? Seeing the world...
Just let it go, okay? Look, you and I should have never been friends in the first place.
In this scene, you can tell both of them have a lot of that fear I've talked about, but even with that, Luca goes back to do the race. He's not going to let that fear control him anymore. He's going to do the thing this entire movie has been leading up to. Like I said, a race is not the most original climax ever, but this movie culminates both Luca and Alberto's arcs in such an amazing way. So Luca goes back to do the race, and he does pretty well, even passing the villain guy, but then it starts to rain. This movie has made it clear that it's bad for both characters since, they don't want to change into their sea monster form in front of others. It looks like Luca can't finish the race now, but to his surprise, Alberto comes with an umbrella to help him. This doesn't really seem important and even seems a little predictable, but I want you to really think about this. This sea monster who's been hiding from others his whole life and argued against Luca going away and pretending to be a human forever, goes out to save his friend in the middle of a storm with just an umbrella. That sounds dangerous for him, but he did it anyway, for Luca. It's the entire reason he came to the town in the first place, the reason why it was the first time he had ever done it. That is incredible. Both of these friends were able to push each other out of their comfort zones without even trying. But you know what's even better about this? Alberto actually turns into a sea monster, and when he's in danger, who's there to come to his rescue? That's right, Luca. The sea monster who was really frightened when he first came to the town, so much so that he wanted to leave multiple times, goes out in the middle of the rain to save the person who got him there in the first place. Through learning about all these different things, having different experiences, ones he could have never dreamed of having, his confidence has grown, and like I said, they could have just stopped his arc after the first 3 minutes. Luca wants to go to the surface, and he went to the surface. But the fact that it continues and he builds up enough courage to do this is amazing. Luca's themes of discovery and acceptance culminate here amazingly. It's revealed that Luca and Alberto are sea monsters in a town that hates sea monsters. Most people in the town are okay with that. I think this plot point could have been executed a little better, but when looking at the film's theme of discovery, it works. Just like how Luca discovered himself by being pushed by himself and others to do things he never thought he would do, so did the other characters. Through becoming friends with these sea monsters, Julia and some of the other human characters learn that they're not actually monsters. By coming to the surface and seeing their son try new things and win the race, Luca's parents learn that he can do more than just the things they set him up to do. Not everyone is just going to accept these sea monsters, but that shouldn't let them be discouraged.
What he did today was amazing. But we can't let him stay in this world. Can we?
Some people, they'll never accept him. But some will. And he seems to know how to find the good ones.
So they win the race, they buy their Vespa, and say goodbye to Julia as she's heading off to school. Then we get the second best ending of any Pixar movie. Given everything I just explained, this is the perfect conclusion to this beautiful story. Instead of going to live out his life with Luca, Alberto sells the Vespa, the reason they were racing, and the thing they had been trying to get this entire movie. He sold it so Luca could go to school. It's not like it's only a happy ending for Luca either. Alberto has found a real father figure in Giulia's dad, Massimo. And you know the reason Alberto met Massimo in the first place? Yup, without each other, they never would have gotten here and gotten out of the lives they were unsatisfied with. And they never would have even thought about revealing themselves as sea monsters. As the train passes the tunnel, Luca looks over the island that got him out of his comfort zone, and let him start discovering his true self. Wow, this movie is incredible. Simpler than other Pixar movies? Yes, its themes and characters aren't quite as complex as a lot of other Pixar movies, but given everything I just explained, I don't even care. This movie's emotions are really strong, and since the movie has good pacing and that amazing first act, we feel for these characters. It doesn't matter that the stakes are pretty low. These characters are so enjoyable and full of personality that it's consistently entertaining and even thought-provoking. Like I said, it works as a great queer subtext. Its themes of both acceptance and discovery come together so well in the end and even got me to cry. Yet even with all I've said, this movie doesn't let just its emotions and messages fully define it. That's the best part of this movie, but overall this movie is just very simple and fun, and it's not even trying too hard to be emotional. To show you what I'm talking about, let's go back to the montage at the beginning of the film. Instead of playing some emotional score to show us how much Luca is growing as a character, which could fit in the scene, you know what they play instead? The song is amazing as well. Even in the montage itself, Luca and Alberto aren't trying to build an actual Vespa so they can run off together like they dream of doing. They're just having fun together. This movie is a great example of how you can apply great themes to a simple story and characters and keep the simplistic charm of it all. Not only did this movie move me in a way no other Pixar film has, but it's also a fun time and has a lot of rewatchability. Thank you, Pixar. You didn't just make a great film, you made a special one.